U.S. History Summer School, we're back, and we gotta talk about the Articles of Confederation really quickly because this is our first form of government, and it was a disaster. To my point in an earlier video about how the 13 colonies were like totally separate and they only unified kind of during the Revolution just because they needed to, their idea was like, cool, we'll go back to being basically 13 separate states and we'll form a, quote, League of Friendship where the Continental Congress will just kind of oversee almost like an EU type situation. It was basically the ultimate experiment in states' rights, and it really didn't work, asked George Washington. As commander-in-chief of the military, he had his army basically disbanded on multiple winters because the Congress couldn't raise troops. They couldn't force the different militias and states to send food. So like his soldiers were starving. When the war was over, each state had their own debts to deal with. There was a rebellion in Massachusetts called Shea's Rebellion. The Congress couldn't levy taxes. Nothing. It was a disaster. So some of the delegates start meeting up to revise, and then they're like, we should just scrap this and start over. Hey, this is gonna be a really niche US history rant, but I would just like to take a minute to argue in defense of the Articles of Confederation. Just as a quick review, this is our original government, the first US government that was established in 1777, 1 year after we declared independence, and it's the one that gets us through the whole Revolutionary War. Then, it struggles, it's fairly weak, and so then they have a convention, they're like, should we edit this Google Doc? Let's throw it out, and they make the Constitution. And the way that the Articles of Confederation is normally talked about and understood is just well, those sucked. They're weak, they failed. And I just don't like that. It's sort of the way I feel about World War I. Everyone skips over World War I to talk about World War II, and I'm like, I'm sorry. World War I is fascinating and so important. And again, just to be clear, I do think the Constitution was a better format for a democratic government. I really do. I think it was an improvement. I'm just saying this whole narrative of the Articles just being the dummies that then are improved by the Constitution is that's not fair. Argument number one. They won the Revolutionary War under the Articles of Confederation. The government under the Articles of Confederation is the one that negotiated the alliance with France, hey Lafayette, and the one that negotiated the Treaty of Paris, which was hella good for the United States, all things considered. Number two, the Articles of Confederation, that government really successfully helped establish a pattern for settlement/colonization of the new territory west of the Appalachian Mountains. Now, I'm going to be talking about this from the white American colonizer point of view, but from their point of view, it was very successful. Basically, each of the 13 colonies, now states, just wanted to extend west and have these really long, skinny states. They wanted to claim all that land for their own state. And the government under the Articles was no, we need to reserve that for new settlements, new territories, eventually new states. And they banned slavery in the Northwest Territory, and there wasn't a civil war. That's pretty successful. I mean, the bar in US history is just was there a civil war? If not, good job, America. And lastly, I want to give some credit to the government under the Articles of Confederation that really, that's a revolutionary document, those articles. I mean, man, did we go way far on the other side, right? We're not even an absolute monarchy. We want to go to basically an earlier equivalent of the EU, right? We're all just these separate states that come together kind of for common defense, but otherwise they're completely independent. They were able to get 13 completely separate colonies, different colonial governments, different colonial social structures, economics, whatever, morals, everything, to all come together into a confederation. And yes, it was weak. And yes, the kind of Congress couldn't really do a lot. So we end up changing it for the Constitution. But I'm just saying, our first draft government wasn't as bad as a lot of people like to make it seem. It served its purpose. Let's just thank it and then move on.